The Knight's Tale Part 3, as told by Patty Kewell. Theseus expended a great deal of resources to prepare the grand arena for the coming duel. The arena was a mile in circumference and built in a sloped manner so that everyone within the audience would be able to see the tournament. He spared no expense and employed all of the kingdom's best craftsmen in its construction. On the east and west ends of the theater were magnificent marble gates that honored the gods Venus and Mars. On the north was a glorious display of Theseus's loyalty to their greatest deity, Diana. Throughout the entire arena were fine sculptures, paintings, and other noble works of art. The Gate of Venus was further overlaid with paintings of desire, yearning, lament, folly, hope, seduction, flattery, lust, banquets, pleasure, youth, misery, and all the circumstances of love. The paintings of Venus proclaimed without challenge the snare and unequaled might of her powers. Her naked statue, magnificent in detail, was adorned with fresh, fragrant roses. Similarly, the temple gate of Mars was adorned with grisly, painted scenes beginning with a barren forest. The temple was made from steel, from which a mighty and dreadful wind blew, such that even the gates shook. The entire display was filled with every evil imagination: dread, treachery, warfare, strife, suicide, blood, death, madness, complaint, and above all, conquest with sharpened sword. The deaths of unborn mighty heroes and the miseries of every possible misfortune were depicted in the wall's illustrations and in the stars above. The foreboding statue of Mars was accompanied by a ravenous wolf, ready to consume he who would die for love. On the other hand, the temple of the goddess Diana was adorned with scenes of noble hunting and valiant chastity. They portrayed stories of human consequence, one causing despair and being turned into a bear, another spying on the nude Diana and being turned into a hart, only to be consumed by his hounds who did not recognize him. The goddess was seated on a hart with slender hounds and a moon at her feet. The paintings were so lifelike, no wonder that the paint alone had cost a fortune. Theseus was greatly pleased with his work. The day soon came when Palamon and Arcite returned to Athens, each with 100 knights eager to vie for the hand of Emily. There had not been before nor since such a display of eager chivalry. All were consumed with the lusty and lofty desires of fighting for the love of a lady. Palamon's men were equipped with the armor of their choosing. With Palamon rode the king of Thrace, whose countenance was intimidating and stature was strong, in a chariot drawn by bulls, clothed in the ancient skin of a bear, surrounded by more than 20 magnificent yet muzzled wolfhounds ready for the hunt. With him were 100 lords fully armed and hearts ready for battle. Arcite was accompanied by the Indian king, who rode upon a steed and was lavishly adorned with jewels and gold. With him were 100 nobles, armed to the teeth in warriors' gear, who held the ranks of earls, dukes, and kings. Upon his hand sat a lily-white eagle, while tame lions and leopards roamed about freely. Theseus housed both of these great armies and gave them a feast according to their rank. He bestowed gifts to all, treating each with honor and providing hospitality so great that it cannot be matched. 2 hours before daylight, Palamon awoke and was drawn to the temple of Venus, where he blissfully knelt and prayed. He cried out about his misery and then pledged himself to Venus, laying aside any fame and glory if only he were to win Emily as his bride. He spoke to the virtue of love as being greater than that of arms, pledging again to worship Venus in faithfulness were he to win. Declaring his desire for death should he not win, he then offered a sacrifice, after which he perceived having received a sign of her acceptance. This made him glad, and he hurried home. As the sun rose, so did Emily, who, with her maidens, took several pleasing sacraments to the temple of Diana for sacrifice. She prayed to Diana, reminding the goddess of her desire to remain a maiden, free of the company of man or burden of being a wife or with child, free to roam and do as she pleased. She also asked for the burning desires of Palamon and Arcite to be pacified or directed elsewhere, and for their brotherly friendship and devotion to one another to be rekindled. She relented that if she could not remain a maiden, that Diana would at least send the one who most loved her, but declared again her desire to maintain her maidenhood. All at once one of the two sacrificial fires went out, then lit again, and then the other went out with a great whistling sound. She then saw drops of blood flowing from the fire lamp, which caused her to go half mad in fright. She cried out, and then Diana appeared, telling her she would be wed to the one who has endured much misery for her, but Diana would not reveal which it would be. Diana then promised Emily a sign before vanishing, but Emily did not know what that meant, so she simply pledged her obedience and left the temple. Meanwhile, Arcite visited the temple of Mars to offer his sacrifice and pray. He cried out to Mars, acknowledging his need for help and asking Mars to assist him in winning the battle. He pledged not only his eternal fidelity, but his hair and his beard as well. Suddenly, the fires of his sacrifice began to burn very brightly. He heard murmuring that sounded like victory, which raised his hopes greatly as he returned to the inn. Immediately, great strife began in the heavens between Venus and Mars, which had to be arbitrated by Jupiter and his father Saturn. Against his common nature, Saturn explained to Venus that he is the great bringer of vengeance, and that her knight, who is the worthier of the two, will be victorious over the knight of Mars. With this, he, their grandfather, hopes that the two of them will stop their bickering.